welcome.
Hi, thanks.
Thank you so much for being here. Do you mind introducing yourselves?
I'm Ann James, and my pronouns are she, they, and I am an intimacy and sensitivity specialist for Broadway and beyond.
I'm Justin Scribner. I am a stage manager on Broadway and also a professor at Columbia University.
Thank you so much for being here. And could you share a little bit about the training that goes into being an intimacy director before we dive into the rest?
Yeah, I think what's most important training-wise is that you have an understanding of movement. You have an understanding of where people's consent and boundaries lie. And you have an understanding of, the way to dramaturg a play to find those moments of intimacy or sensitivity that your team, your creative team, maybe your director may not even realize based on the culture and the identities of the actors who are playing the roles.
Awesome. You both worked on Parade together.
We did.
Can you speak on how intimacy direction was present in that production and sensitivity?
Yes, I think there were a few moments of L to L, which is what I call a kiss, lip-to-lip contact. So there were a few of those, a few around the waist touches, and, just very familial intimacy. And then there was a choreographed lynching in the show, and that needed a little bit more sensitivity, but there was touch associated with that. Can you think of any other places besides the L to L?
Well,
The dancing.
there were a few L to Ls.
Yeah, yeah. So that primarily would fall under the intimacy world.
Got it. How early in the process of that production did you join?
Right away. I mean, I think I was there for the parade at New York City Center. And then when it transferred, I came back in and touched up some things, right?
Who hires you in the hierarchy of...
That's a really good question.
Yeah.
I get calls out of the blue from general managers, from producers, from directors, from actors.
Wow.
Who are like, hey, you might want to take a look at this. And now I work with an agent, so he is very good at kind of steering people in the right direction as far as what my needs are and everything. But generally speaking, I get called by a myriad of places along the production train.
Got it. How was your collaboration, and what did you expect from each other? How early on did you meet before rehearsal to set the tone?
Yeah. So I came on board for Broadway. I did not do the production at City Center. Cody Renard Richard was the stage manager there, and he had other jobs lined up, and therefore I was working on A Christmas Carol at the same time Michael was doing not Ragtime, because that's the other show that Cody's been done.
On every show.
While Cody was doing Parade, and so I actually heard about the process as it was happening in tandem and knew that if it was going to go to Broadway, that I would be working on it. So when we started preparing the way for the production, it was very quick. We knew in December it was a possibility, but January it became real, and then we were in rehearsal in mid-January. I mean, it was very quick, and we replaced many actors. So there was a conscientious effort from everyone, top to bottom, to build a sense of community between these people, because Michael staged the entire production with the full cast on stage and witnessing the events as a judge and jury would.
Right.
Even though the whole thing didn't take place in a courthouse, by presenting it that way, all of us were implicated in this trial. And that also meant everyone witnessing all of the macro and microaggressions that are exhibited in 1915, 1913 Atlanta in this production, which also utilized some really harsh language and also some harsh props and images that we knew were going to be problematic, because even though the production was only 10 days of performances at New York City Center, doing that sort of work for 6 months was going to take a different kind of resolve from the leadership and also from everyone that was buying in. Anyway, long story short, I made sure that I was in a conversation as soon as possible with Molly Kearns, who was our wellness person, and Anne. The three of us got together on a call with, I think, first just the three of us, and then with the creative team, because we wanted to make sure we were all aligned.
Yeah.
And Anne had already laid the foundational work with Michael Arden at City Center to really build a sense of awareness and conscientiousness around how we get into and out of the story and in-roll and de-roll, which is a question you should ask Anne about.
Right into
That
it.
is all
If
true.
So my next question, you kind of dived into it, was what kind of conversations did you have during pre-production and during rehearsals to ensure that the SM team and you and Michael were on the same page to provide the cast and the creative team just the best tools to work on the production?
Well, just like Justin said, there's a lot of imagery, a lot of flag decisions, a lot of very culturally offensive imagery and props. And the thing that was most important to me was to try to prepare the rehearsal space so that the actors could feel the flagpole, but we wouldn't have to see the imagery until everybody had calibrated themselves and we had, preparation. Hey, tomorrow is the day. We're going to look at this and we're going to see how it affects staging and all of this. But up into that moment, we had, I think, white flags at one point. Then we had rainbow flags. Something just to calibrate people into a place of being able to do the work with causing the least amount of harm. I mean, they knew what the images of the flag were going to be, but sometimes the visual is arresting, and we wanted to make sure that they could do the blocking and the choreography with the least amount of harm possible. So that's one thing. I did have affinity meetings with the cast. I had a meeting with the Black cast members. I had a meeting with the women. I had a meeting with the white guys, the young adults, who were having to lie and have the false narratives about this one individual. And so we just kind of prepared the room in a very organic, natural way that I feel, even though there was some oops, ouch, I'm sorries in the process, I feel like we mitigated the least amount of harm possible in the process.
I remember when we visited, I think it was City Center Tech with Cody, and then we visited your tech on Broadway, and we saw two very different things. We saw the beginning, and then with you we saw the
jump, as we call it.
The jump, yeah. I was trying to remember the jump. And at City Center, I remember we discussed, and I think you came in before we went to the tech, about hiding the weapons and putting things upside down backstage, because it not only is a visual that can trigger the cast, but it can trigger the crew, or just to just make sure that there's an all-around safety. Aside from that, in the conversations that you had individually, what tools and resources were available for the team during tech rehearsal and performances? And then after you leave, you pass the baton to SM team, and how do you carry those things on?
Well, we were really lucky to have producers that supported not just Anne being more present than I think she might have been. They really pushed for having her with us more often, which we were very grateful for. We also had Molly Kearns, who I mentioned before, who was our wellness person. And she did physical therapy, massage, healing touch, meditation, and group work. She even did a hypnotherapy session. Wow. She is devoted to wellness, and that forward-thinking initiative from the producers led everyone towards a sense of camaraderie, wellness, and awareness for one another's care. And I mean, this is the thing that I found most appealing about the show and working on the show, is that there was a lot of care involved. And if there's a word that I put forth more than anything else in my personal ethos as a stage manager, it's care. Yeah. So it was really cool to not be alone in that. Michael was really keen on making sure people felt cared for. And I really loved what he and Anne came up with to basically have 2 separate rooms. One room, which we did our morning circles together in, and we had cubbies for everyone to put their shoes and their books and their things. And then they also would have either a sweater, a jacket, a rehearsal skirt, and shoes that they would put on in that room and leave their phones, so that when we went to stage the piece, everyone was able to leave themselves in the other room, enter their character, enroll properly, and then do the work together without distractions. And at every meal break or end of day, we played dance music. So as people left the room, we played it in both rooms. We played Beyonce, we played Lizzo, we played Cyndi Lauper. We played joyful, fun things that would remind us we are a community doing a piece of theater, and we could leave the show in that room while we went and de-rolled. And people created new systems and routines and sacred practices at the theater to create their own enrolling and de-rolling practice, which was much more intentional than I've ever seen. A group of 33 actors supporting one another in enrolling and de-rolling.
Wow. Do you have anything to add?
No, I mean, I just, other than the fact that it was such a beautifully led process, Michael Arden, Justin, this individual right here, was just like at the helm and so open and ready to move into the space with intention and with safety and with care. I really hadn't, up until Parade, had such an intentional experience. You know, I've worked on a few shows, but this one was so far beyond with how the actors bought in and really were caring for themselves. I mean, I still see Jay, and Jay is just, you know, so thankful that they learned that process. And you know, I feel like that's the important thing that we want to say here, that I want to say, I'll speak from the I, is that the industry will move with us. The industry has proven itself to have the time to move in this direction. Will it? I think it's going to take leaders in the space. It's going to take Tony Award winning directors that have proof that it works, and that while it is a work in progress, and mistakes happen and harm still happens, but that if the intention is set to have a space that is loving and joyful and non-competitive and really, really community-based, that we can shift the needle a little bit in the industry, and that's the hope. That's the hope.
That just alerted 5 million more questions in my head.
Good.
I'm going to organize them now.
Good.
Have you been in a space where the leadership wasn't as intentional as this was? And how was your process in moving forward to a place where your role and your just everything that you do was seen in the room, I guess?
Yes. Yes, I have.
We're not naming names here, but...
No. Yeah.
I mean, I mean, I think some people are slow to change. And I say a lot of the time, you know, it takes a long time to move a cruise ship around, to turn a cruise ship around. It takes a long time. I'm not really concerned or focused on living in a world where, you know, a kind of a top-down patriarchal system that we live in can have complete control over what we do as artists.
Yeah.
I mean, it is show business. You know, I mean, if you move into this world, business is the word.
Yeah.
We get to put pretty dresses on and bow and or they do, but you know,
Well, I don't know. You look pretty great.
I do dress.
You slay. You do slay. You do slay.
But you know, there's that part of it. There's the glitz and the glamour, and that's what I feel people outside of the industry think about. But on the inside, I think it's really important to, yes, there are going to be slow movers. There are going to be people who resist. For whatever reason, their attachment to the patriarchy or whatever you want to call that, the leadership style that we live in, whatever that is based in, I understand it and appreciate it. But if I can change one Broadway debut actor's mind about the resources that they have available, then I'm willing to risk it all to help that one person feel welcome in the room.
Thank you. That question's going to come to you in a little bit, but before I do that, it is for Justin. Sorry. How did having Anne impact your approach to the production and your workload specifically?
So I think there is an opportunity for stage managers to advocate for intimacy directors. And I have had the opportunity to reach out on different productions and encourage general managers and producers to hire intimacy directors, and sometimes to no avail. I have gotten Anne to be a part of other shows. I feel like my advocacy was key in making that happen, and yet my advocacy wasn't key enough to make her involved in the way that I wanted her to be involved. So it depends on the show, and this is where the capitalist structure starts to fall into place. And this systems that we're trying to urge forward, that we want care to be preeminent in the room where we are working with actors and artists to tell stories. Now, we have producers, general managers, co-producers, investors out there that are really caring for the longevity and the health of a financial model that does not value care, but every now and then, when you see a production like Parade succeed, mostly because you can tell there is intentionality and care in the storytelling, people do start to look underneath to say, what is making this machine tick? And so we are very grateful for the opportunity to talk to you about this and have anyone and everyone hear that it is actually key to the success of the business model to actually invest in the care of people. So for me, the other aspect of this is that we have guideposts, boundaries, consent-based practices that older directors and producers and actors are not aware of, nor do they believe in yet, because they haven't seen them work in the room. I have seen them work in the room. I care about this sort of thing. I haven't told Anne this, but I took a class in the pandemic called Stage Managing Intimacy, which was all about advocating for IDs, ICs, IDCs. And the conscientiousness it's simply about creating a supportive environment to do whatever it is needed in the piece to allow artists to do their work safely and comfortably. And safety and comfort are not everyone's priority. So to have people there in the room that actually are devoted to that sort of thing, that sort of dedication, can bring people together if done well. And I have been in situations where we needed an intimacy director in the room, and I have not had to stand in as an intimacy director, but I have had to front load a lot more care and create guideposts, guide rails, boundaries, and rules in the room to allow safe conversations to happen. And having Anne be a part of a production with me has given me the chance to actually bring up conversations easier, have a partner in crime. I mean, by the way, she mentioned affinity groups. She had young adults, she had aggressors, she had also Jewish company members. And we had Jewish company members, and we had another kind of layer of people who were married to Jewish people and who were not necessarily practicing Jewish people. So
but impacted by
For
the
sure.
story.
Right.
Yeah.
Very interesting to be able to hold space for so many people. Most importantly for me, though, she had a little affinity group for the stage management team.
Wow.
Which I found very lovely and useful, because it was actually an extra heavy workload for us as well to hold space for all of this.
Yeah.
Yeah. My love note continues
Yeah.
as I continue to write more and more to
You
the power
just
of
answered
Anne. Yeah.
a bunch of stuff. I do
So efficient.
remember with Parade, there was an event, an incident
Yes.
that happened during the Broadway production with protesters.
First preview.
Right. Can you speak a little bit about
Sure.
how the company, obviously, I mean, it's kind of an obvious question, but like how the company reacted to it and what did the team do to immediately just kind of like alleviate the the Did Anne step in
Sure.
for that? And
Well, Anne was around for all of
An
it.
email.
yeah.
The dressing rooms for the actors were almost all on the stage right side, which butted up against 45th Street. And the protesters were in front of our marquee, and anyone in any of those dressing rooms could open their window, look out, and see what was happening, see what the banners were that they were holding, hear what they were saying to passerbys, to the police. And it was our first preview, so we had planned an opportunity for us all to be on stage together at 7 o'clock or 7:15 before we opened the house. And it was right before we all had planned to meet, and the plan was to just create a ritual with one another to say, this is our first time sharing this, let's hold hands, let's take a collective breath together. We had become accustomed to that sort of communal sharing of space.
Right.
But this happened right before that. So in essence, it gave us an built-in opportunity for us to address the trauma that was currently happening outside and the danger that some people felt.
Yeah.
So we, for some people who were very scared and unsure of what this meant and what it was going to mean, we started every rehearsal with, does anyone have anything to share that has nothing to do with the play? Always. And so everyone got used to whoever has the urge to speak, speaks. And at this meeting, we had several, especially of our older company members who were very caring for the group, speak up and say that this is actually, this sort of attention on the show is going to bring the healing that we need to be giving to the community. And this is an opportunity. We're going to hold each other to do this show at the best of our ability. People will have a problem with it. They did then, they will now. That's not a surprise. And they can come every day and we will be ready. We have a safe space we're in. We did have a meeting with security to discuss all of this after, because it did feel very unsafe for many company members and stayed feeling unsafe for a while. We were still wearing masks. We all had tags,
Right.
that said Parade, which
Right.
we didn't really want to be wearing out there in the world.
Right.
Lots of questions came up and concerns, but more than anything, that meeting aligned the group together to say that this is something that we are doing as a team, as a family. We're going to be okay. Let's do this for Mary Fagan. Let's do this for Leo and Lucille. Let's do this for this community that needs to hear this. It was very beautiful to see how we were brought together in that moment. And then in the days that followed, we didn't have protesters return, which really showed us that they were the type of protesters that were looking to get attention.
Yeah.
Media,
Yeah. They were looking
fearmongers.
Correct. A lot of the people that actually existed already in the fabric of the show that we were doing.
Yeah.
It felt like this is unfortunately
Yeah.
a really important reason that we are telling this story still, because it continues to fester.
Yeah.
And this sort of BS exists in the country in surprising ways. And this is our opportunity to stand against it.
Yeah.
Yeah, very touching to see a cast mobilize and hold one another in an instance like that. I think I was out of town. I heard the call, and rightly so, there were members of the cast and crew who were beside themselves with fear about, am I going to be able to do this show? And am I going to be safe in my workplace? And the way, I think it's the Schuberts, rallied around and, shored up security and were very proactive with the building and front of house, and just a remarkable way to support and hold the cast within the building was remarkable to hear about. And like Justin said, they never came back. And which leads me to a question about the tour, but I don't know if we're going to dive into that. But certainly the cowardice to do that was typical, I feel, of that kind of mindset. But we prevailed and we persevered, and the show obviously did very well.
Oh, yeah. Taking us away from that, I have a more methodologies question about blocking, note-taking. You took a seminar and you have done this for so many years. So you probably have already experience doing that, but did Anne give you language notes, or just how did you went on note-taking on the L to L's, which is a new thing for me?
I don't think I gave you too much vocabulary.
Well, you probably did give me vocabulary, but not in a pedagogical,
No. This kid is a stage manager back. The language, the precision, the community-based language that you use is so beautiful. And I didn't feel for one second that you needed any tutelage, for God's sake, just camaraderie.
That's right.
And,
that's right.
A way to be professional in the space in our own rights, but then to be able to work together was just a dream, because your shit. I mean, if I can say that,
you're so fine.
You know what it takes, to be a collaborator with Michael Arden, who I feel is one of our best, and hold him in space while also supporting the whole group. And also, I must say, hold yourself with care. I've seen the other side of that, where there's just one too many plates to spin, and someone is going to drop a plate. And in a world that believes that perfection is real, it can be very, very devastating to have someone feel as though they have failed or if they have let the community down. But there was just this warm steel. That's what you are. I mean, just hot steel, just strong, ready, non-reactive, but pro solution kind of vibes.
Thank you, Anne. But it wasn't all that way. I will say there were plenty of times where icky situations came up, and that is what happens even if our show was, the Blues Clues, with no sensitivity or intimacy needed.
Blues Clues.
But the show was complicated, but even more complicated were the interpersonal relationships and the trauma that people brought with them into the space that they didn't even realize they were packing. So it's interesting for me to have a collaborator like Anne who can see and feel the things that I'm feeling and validate me and help me be a co-conspirator in wellness to figure out how do we handle these things that are icky and sticky and could just be ignored and let to fester. We knew we were going to close in August. We had 6 months. We could have said, whatever. You know what? Let these people fend to themselves. No, we were working together, aligned. And I really think that there were other people in the building that would not necessarily have joined our collective work if we hadn't all kind of bought in and participated in this sense of community. And we together worked through some really interesting issues, which we cannot talk about because they were sensitive. But the truth is, I'd be remiss to say that those were not the most important times that I had help and I had support from Anne, because they were things that I couldn't go to anyone else really for.
And these were after the rehearsals were over. This was during production while, you know, all the designers, the director, there's so much support while the show is being born. It's almost like the labor is happening. But then when the kid is born, it's kind of like, okay, there's your show. Good luck with it. And we did have some issues come up after the show opened, and you know, who's left to take care of that? Who's left to hold the space for that? And I was so happy, open, and willing to come back as many times as I needed to support you, to support your stage management team, who I love, stage managers, and to also then let that move out into the community. And yeah, I had to like, come here, let me talk to you for a second. We had several one-on-ones, but
they didn't delve into HR.
No,
they didn't delve into punishment, or it was actually like relational, and it had to do with the sensitive nature of the show and how we were caring for each other and we're not caring for one another in community.
Right.
So this sort of issue might have fallen through the cracks if it weren't something that we were already consciously trying to care for beforehand.
Thank you so much. That is my thesis. Literally, that's what's happening right now. Everything you're saying is what I need.
Okay.
Everything you're saying is exactly what I felt, what I thought, what I'm trying to, you know, this thesis, I don't know where it's going to go, but aside from Columbia Library and Michael Sorrow.
Get in the library, that's all I'm saying.
This is exactly what talking to you that first time, my first year, inspired in me, because my first show here, it was like sex scene, blood, fight. I was like, whoa, and I had never worked with that. And then talking to you, it just was like, oh my God, I like this. This person is necessary. I kind of want to learn how to do it too, but that's a separate, you know, that's a separate thing.
Got it.
Especially as a woman of color, I feel like it's necessary to have people that look like me be in those positions, be in the position that I'm stage manager, and be in positions like intimacy director and sensitivity, because not all plays are for everybody. Some plays have specific people in them, and I feel like specific people need to talk to them about it.
Yes.
Because backgrounds are different, and they're different for a reason. And people feel different for a reason, which leads me to, I'm kind of plugging your company. If you want to talk about it just a little bit, because I remember it.
Yeah. Intimacy Coordinators of Color.
Yeah.
I started that company shortly after taking some training in intimacy and looking around the room and going,
Where are they?
Where are they? Yep.
So I reached out, and I think it was a miraculous moment. I reached out to the Facebook community. I said, hey, I'm doing this intimacy thing. Are there any people of color out here who would want to be taught by people of color? Not just want to take the class, but to be taught by people of color. And I got 400 likes from people I'd never met before.
Wow.
Strangers. So like, I got tagged in this, and I do. And I went, okay, all right, we're starting Intimacy Coordinators of Color.
Love
That's
it.
it.
Yeah.
And that has evolved into the Global Majority Intimacy Conference. The hot take. This is the first that I've announced that I have a sensitivity specialization cohort. So I have 15 members of the cohort that are learning about sensitivity specialization.
That's awesome.
And in spring of 2025, I believe, I will be launching Ann James and Associates, which is a sensitivity specialization company.
There we go. That's right.
So really happy. So then I can go write books.
Yes, that's awesome. We need, I don't know how big the industry for intimacy directors, like I don't know how many there are. And I know they're not a lot, but yeah.
I mean, at the Broadway level,
Right.
there are very few. And the regional level, I would say 15, 20. And then, I mean, of course, there are a lot of people that are studying, that are getting short films and student films and, doing very, very exciting work over in LA, Hollywood, Atlanta. The film and television industry is huge.
Yeah.
I mean, it's taking a hit right now because there's just not a lot of work.
Yeah.
So intimacy coordinators, which technically are television and film aficionados, although I call myself a coordinator because I started that way.
Right.
And so now I've just called myself an intimacy coordinator, which just causes a lot of problems. But anyway, I just don't feel like I'm an intimacy director because I'm a stage director, and I would never want to take the role of director in a room because it's a power dynamic, and it's also not true. So
Right, you're not directing.
I'm not directing. I'm coordinating between departments. I am choreographing. I mean, if you want to call me an intimacy choreographer, that's
how
fine.
I learned it.
That's fine
An
too.
undergrad choreographer. Yeah.
Yeah, but so but
also, this is like, in the scheme of things, the industry-wide acceptance of the idea of an intimacy director is not even 10 years old, it feels like.
No.
2016 was maybe the first time I heard of someone doing anything. 2017,
It started with
maybe.
the Me Too movement, and then that's when
But even the Me Too.
The first one was Frankie and Johnny and the Claire de Lune with Audra.
That's right. On Broadway.
Yeah, on Broadway. That's the first
2019.
Broadway.
Oh, wow.
So.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, which
Decent.
needed an intimacy
Yeah.
coordinator, director, choreographer.
The show is nude.
Yeah. However, we have been needing attention. And I do think that the same people that are directing now were directing 10, 20, 30 years ago. And so there is a real shift that is being, it's slow, but it's happening to embrace the idea of another person at the table in terms of the creative team who is caring for actors and stage managers and creative team members in doing work that is more intimate, more specific, and more sensitive. It's going to take some time, though. And I think if it wasn't for the pandemic, actually, it wouldn't have jump-started us towards this.
100%.
Because it shows us so clearly all the things that we were saying were missing from our collaborations are almost perfectly illustrated by a person who's in the room to support a safe and comfortable work environment. And I'm talking about artistically, not just HR.
Yeah.
Because that's its own situation.
Its own thing.
Right?
That's a whole different thesis.
DEI, HR, sensitivity, and intimacy are all kind of four buckets of values and need that we're looking at. And I think the first thing that people are going to go to is HR and DEI. And then they hire those people and they think, well, we don't have money in the budget for baby.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
If you're doing the show, you have to budget it properly. Yeah.
The budget.
Anyway, I digress.
No,
The business. Show business.
Yeah. This was lovely. I appreciate you both so much. This was everything I wanted it to be.
Yay!
I can't wait to see what's next for y'all.
Sorry, that was a ruckus.
Yeah, I'm feeling it
I'm
too.
causing a ruckus. I was just banging the.
I already saw I saw a run through of Eureka Day, and I saw your work. I saw it. I saw it on stage.
Okay.
And I was like, there she is.
Getting a bit of a
There's
style.
It
Getting the
is.
style.
Yeah. So thank you so much.
Okay.
That's really good.
I can't
I
wait.
appreciate you both.
You're so welcome. Thank you so much for inviting me.